A 2017 study published in Scientific Reports sequenced 14 used kitchen sponges pulled from ordinary German households. The researchers found 362 distinct bacterial species living inside them, at densities comparable to what you would expect to find in a stool sample. Boiling the sponges, the standard advice for years, did not solve the problem. In some cases, it actually selected for the more resilient species and made the overall picture marginally worse rather than better. The sponge, in nearly every one of these households, was sitting right there on the edge of the sink, in plain view, touched by every family member several times a day. It had been sitting there for weeks, sometimes longer, quietly doing its job. Nobody in the house thought of it as a problem, because it was the thing used to make everything else clean. That's the part worth sitting with. The tool built specifically to remove contamination had become, without anyone ever noticing, the single most contaminated object in the entire kitchen, outranking the trash can, the cutting board, even the toilet handle. So today, 7 Western hygiene habits that would genuinely unsettle a Scandinavian, and the actual reasoning underneath each one, not just the habit itself, but why it holds up. Before we go on, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far this story travels. And if you're loving it so far, join the family by hitting subscribe, because tomorrow we've got something special lined up just for you. Starting with the first, and it's the one that follows directly from that opening study, the permanent kitchen sponge. In most Western kitchens, the sponge is a fixture. It lives by the tap, gets rinsed, gets used again, and gets replaced somewhere between whenever it starts to smell and whenever it falls apart. In a Nordic kitchen, the equivalent tool is more often a dishcloth that goes into a hot wash regularly, or a brush with a hard handle and stiff bristles that dries out completely between uses. The difference is not fussiness. It's that a sponge holds moisture in an enormous internal surface area at room temperature, which is the exact set of conditions bacteria need, while a brush drains and dries in 20 minutes and gives them almost nothing to work with. Worth adding, the same research group found that sponges cleaned by their owners had roughly the same bacterial load as sponges that had never been cleaned at all. The routine of sanitizing the sponge, in other words, was doing very little except making people feel that the sponge had been handled. That gap between the feeling and the result is going to come up in every item on this list. Habit number 2, and this one is more specifically British than American: washing dishes in a basin of standing water and not rinsing them. The washing up bowl is a genuine cultural artifact. Dishes go in, soap goes in, hot water goes in, and everything gets washed in the same water, which gradually turns into a suspension of grease and food particles at a temperature well below the point where it kills anything. Then the dishes come out and go on the rack with the suds still on them, to dry into a thin film of surfactant that goes back into the next meal. To a Scandinavian, this reads as a process that ends one step early. The soap is not the clean part. The soap is what lifts the residue so the water can carry it away, and if the water never arrives, the residue and the soap are both still on the plate. Nordic kitchens overwhelmingly rinse under a running tap or use a dishwasher, which rinses at a temperature the basin never reaches. The habit persists partly for a reason that has nothing to do with hygiene. British water was historically expensive to heat, the basin saved it, and the practice outlived the constraint that produced it. The third habit is the one that makes food safety agencies visibly tired: washing raw chicken in the sink. The instinct is understandable. The chicken looks like it came from somewhere, and rinsing things is what you do to make them clean. The problem is that Campylobacter does not rinse off. What happens instead is that water hitting the surface of the bird aerosolizes droplets that travel well beyond the sink, onto the tap, the counter, the drying rack, and any washed salad sitting nearby. The UK Food Standards Agency has been running public campaigns against this for over a decade, and the practice still hasn't fully disappeared. Cooking the chicken to temperature kills the bacteria. The rinse only relocates them. Scandinavian kitchen practice tends to skip the rinse entirely and treat the raw bird as a contained hazard from package to pan. with the cutting board and hands treated as the actual control point. It's less satisfying. It's also the part that works. Fourth, and this is one that makes Nordic visitors quietly recalculate the room: wall-to-wall carpet in bedrooms, hallways, and bathrooms. A Nordic bathroom is typically a wet room with a tiled floor and a drain in the middle of it. The design assumption is that the room will get soaked and then get squeeged and dried, on purpose, regularly. A carpeted bathroom cannot be cleaned that way. It can only be vacuumed, which removes the surface layer and leaves the deep layer where the humidity is. Carpet in bedrooms raises a related issue that gets less attention. Carpet fiber is an excellent reservoir for skin cells and the dust mite population that feeds on them, and the density of both is highest exactly where people spend 8 hours a night breathing. Nordic homes favor hard floors with washable rugs for the mundane reason that a rug can go in a machine and a carpet cannot. The floor you can lift and wash is a different category of object from the floor you can only pass a vacuum over. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Habit number 5 belongs to public swimming pools, and it's the one that produces the most visible reaction: getting into the water without showering properly first. In Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark, the pre-swim shower is not a suggestion on a laminated sign. It's a supervised, soap and skin, no swimsuit procedure in a communal shower room, and attendants will send you back if you skip it. Visitors from countries where the shower is a decorative rinse at best tend to find this confronting, and they usually assume it's about propriety. It isn't. Chlorine does not react much with clean skin. It reacts with what people bring in on their skin, mostly sweat, urea, and cosmetic residue, and the products of that reaction are chloramines. Chloramines are the compound responsible for what people describe as the smell of a swimming pool, and also for stinging eyes and irritated airways in badly ventilated pool halls. A pool that smells strongly of chlorine is not a pool with too much chlorine in it. It's a pool where the chlorine has already been used up reacting with everything that walked in unwashed. The Nordic shower rule exists to keep that reaction from happening in the first place, which is why Nordic pools smell like almost nothing. The 6th habit is about air, and it's one Scandinavians notice within an hour of arriving somewhere: never opening a window. Swedish has a verb for this, vädra, and Norwegian has lufta, and both describe the daily act of opening windows wide for 10 or 15 minutes to exchange the air in a room. It happens in February. It happens at -10. The house loses some heat and gets it back quickly, because air has very little thermal mass and the walls stay warm. The Western default in a house with central heating or air conditioning is a sealed envelope with recirculated air, and the resulting indoor humidity is what turns a mattress into habitat. Dust mites cannot drink. They absorb moisture from the air, and they need relative humidity somewhere above 50% to survive, which is precisely what a warm sealed bedroom with 2 sleeping adults provides. Which leads to the version of this that surprises people most. The Nordic habit of throwing the duvet back and leaving the bed open to the air for an hour, rather than making it neatly at 7 in the morning, has an actual mechanism behind it. Research from Kingston University found that an unmade bed dries out through the day and the mite population drops with it, while a bed made immediately traps the night's moisture under the covers and keeps it exactly where the mites want it. The tidier bed is the worse bed. A lot of Nordic housekeeping runs on that kind of inversion. And the 7th, which ties the whole list together: flushing the toilet with the lid up while the toothbrushes sit uncovered on the counter. Researchers at the University of Colorado Boulder used lasers to make toilet plume visible in 2022, and the footage is worth looking up if you want to ruin a small part of your day. Particles left the bowl at nearly 2 meters per second and reached about 1.5 meters above it within 8 seconds, then hung in the air of the room afterward. In a typical Western bathroom, the toothbrush holder is roughly 1 meter away from that. Nordic bathrooms handle this partly by architecture and partly by habit. The lid goes down. Toothbrushes go in a cabinet. In many apartments, the toilet is in a separate small room from the sink and the shower entirely, which removes the question rather than managing it. 7 habits, and one premise sitting underneath all of them. The Scandinavian version of cleanliness is concerned with where contamination actually goes, and it will happily accept an unmade bed, an open window in winter, and a bathroom floor with a drain in it to get that right. The Western version is concerned with whether a space looks and smells attended to, and it will accept a sponge full of bacteria, a rinsed chicken, and a plume of aerosol over the toothbrushes to get that. Neither system is stupid inside the house that produced it. But only one of them is answering the question it thinks it's answering. All the sources and data referenced are in the description below. If this changed how you think about your own routines, following the channel means a lot, and drop a comment with what you want covered next. Thanks for watching. Another one's coming tomorrow.